Good evening, everybody. My name is Vince Lacroce, and welcome to the first ever podcast, our pilot episode called Voce with Lacroce. I am here with two of my former students from Laurie McDonald High School who are first year nursing graduates and are in the field right now with this whole COVID-19 epidemic and pandemic around the world. A little bit about myself before we begin, and I'm going to leave it up to the ladies to talk about their experiences up until now. I've been in education for about 17 years. I've worked for over 16 schools at the English Montreal School Board. I'm also the owner of Lacroce Designs. It's a company that prides itself on videography, photography, graphic design, and event planning. And this is another element to what we're branding off to doing. And I'm very happy to have two great people who are spending an evening with me to talk a little bit about their lives right now and what they see day to day. So I'll leave it up to you ladies to introduce yourselves and share a little bit about who you are and why you're doing this. So how about Melissa D? Why don't you start us off?
Okay, so I'm currently working at the Children's Hospital. Like Vince said, it's gonna be almost a year that I started working there. So I'm super junior. And I think Mel can agree that, starting your first year of nursing, you would never expect to start in a pandemic. So it's been super stressful. It's been scary. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I love my job and I'm really happy. Even though this is happening, I want to help those who are sick. And I'm very happy that I'm doing this podcast with Mel because we graduated together and we were study buddies.
Awesome. Melissa, a little intro about yourself.
So same thing as Mel. It's going to be almost a year that we're nurses on the front line. We graduated together from Dawson College, and I am at St. Mary's in oncology. And I never thought when I read that quote from Florence Nightingale, my first semester of nursing school, she said 2020 is going to be the year of the nurse. Never in a million years did I think 2020 we were going to have a pandemic and first year juniors we were going to be on the front line fighting this pandemic together. But I honestly do feel blessed to be in this position, to be healthy enough with Mel to be fighting and be able to help protect and help people that are sick and are vulnerable and really do need us to take care of them in this very difficult time. It's been challenging, it's been stressful, especially for juniors, but I think this is going to make us stronger and we're going to come out of this as better nurses in the future and have stories to tell.
Well, absolutely. But on behalf, I think, of everybody in Quebec and everywhere around the world, thank you for what you do every day. There's not too many people who would be giving up of their time to do what you do every day and putting your own health on the line for everyone. It's truly commendable, and knowing you and seeing you guys grow up, Laurie McDonald and seeing you do this makes me really proud to know the type of people that you truly are and what you're giving back. So thank you very much. It's an honor to have you here, and I just want you to talk to our audience and talk to us a little bit about what it is to be in the front lines today. A little bit about maybe some of your experiences, if you can. What is a day in your life today, and what is it that you see? What are the silver linings? There are rainbows everywhere on windows that are preaching hope and are hoping that better days are ahead, and I believe that they are. So if you can share a little bit about what it is that you do on a day to day and some of the experiences that you've had.
Who starts?
Anyone can start.
Mel, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. Okay. I'll start. So basically for me, going into work, it's scary because I don't know what I'm going into. I always have the fear that I could be a carrier of the virus, be asymptomatic, and I'm going and I'm dealing with children who have other illnesses, and I don't know if I have the virus and I could be passing it on to them. Those who aren't under precaution, who are there for other reasons, that I'll pass it to them. I'll pass it to my coworkers. I'll come home and I could give it to my mom. I think that's my biggest fear right now. I don't care as much for myself catching it. I care the most about giving it to other people. And that's the last thing I want to do.
I'm so sorry. How does your family, your mother, your parents, your family members, knowing that every day you guys are potentially, putting yourself in harm's way, how are they taking it? How are you guys handling it at home? Has it changed their lives? It must have, right? Because day in, day out, are they like quarantined from you? How has all this affected your home life?
Well, my mom is obviously, she's very paranoid. So is her boyfriend. They're like, before I even leave, I make sure I change my clothes at work, come home, shower right away, and make sure I disinfect everything. And even like living at home, I try to keep my distance from my mom or anyone, just because I'm paranoid. She's paranoid too. She's scared that I might catch it. So we're a little bit on edge, and I'm sure Mel could agree. Yeah. And it's the same thing for you at home.
How do you feel about that, Melissa?
Well, actually, our moms know each other, and I remember just when we started nursing, they said, "Oh my goodness, like this is such a very difficult, challenging field they're going into, and they're going to be exposed to so many viruses." Little did we know this would have happened. And so this definitely changed the dynamic of the simple normalcy of my daily life, just coming back home from work. Now I have a different separate entrance coming into the house. Everything needs to be done down before I even come into the home. I take a shower right away. I completely clean down everything. And like Mel, I keep a distance from everyone in my house. It's very hard not to be able to hug my sister when I come home. We're very affectionate. We're Italian, like we love like hugging and like being very close with our family. So it's hard to see that cultural difference in the home with keeping a distance and having to stay in my room, eat most of the time in my bedroom. And when I'm in the kitchen, no one can really be around me either.
Yeah.
They're paranoid of me going to work and potentially bringing something back home, potentially getting something and being overworked and being immune suppressed and getting something as well. A lot of ambivalent emotions around the whole thing, to be honest.
So go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to say also, the thing about this virus is that it's so unpredictable. You could be so healthy and you can end up in the ICU. Well, like I've seen and I've heard young people my age end up in the ICU with no underlying conditions. And that's another scary thing about it. So, and I think people underestimate this virus, and and they don't take it as seriously because they think it's only for older people, but it's not. Like everyone needs to be careful because you don't know what can happen.
No, as you saw from the figures, right? Where over 16,000 people have been infected here alone in Quebec, and a lot of them are in private care. A lot of seniors' homes and private centers for the elderly are being affected and targeted, and it's very, very difficult for them as well. How do you address that? How you find people are not taking it? You said they're not taking it serious. Do you see people not following those rules, even at the hospital? What are your instructions? How are they addressing it? How are you working together as a team, right? Because you're in the front lines. They're directly getting your care. How is it that you work together as a team and ensure that you guys are safe as well?
That's something that I'm finding very difficult to understand, is that, well, not understand, just kind of cope with, is that I'm in oncology and a lot of our beds are also designated for palliative care. And a lot of these patients are going through a lot of their oncological emergencies and like comorbidities and dealing with their illness alone. No visitors are allowed. In my unit, that's something that's truly a part of the the medication regimen, is having family therapy there. And I'm sure you can agree, because you're working with children, they need their parents. So it's difficult to see people suffering with their diseases alone and what's going to happen, and only being able to have one family member at a time come in once imminently dying.
Yeah. At the children's, though, luckily parents can stay with the kids. But besides that, there's no other visitors who are allowed. And I don't know how it is at St. Mary's, Mel, but where I am, we're all getting screened at at the entrance.
That's true,
Any
yeah.
parents that are coming in are getting screened. All the workers are getting screened if you have fever or cough, and if you have any of the symptoms, you can't work. And it's also our responsibility as nurses, as soon as we feel like we're sick, we have to take the responsibility that we have to stay home, because we don't want to risk anything. As much as we want to help, we don't want to risk anything happening.
So how do you guys keep your spirits up? Day in, day out, you're seeing all of this happening to you. It feels, even for myself, I was talking to my wife, it feels almost like we're in a really bad dream. You know what I mean? Not being able to go outside, walking, just walking on a simple block, and it looks like people have like the plague, and you run on the other side of the street to ensure that, everyone's safe and stuff like that. And how do you, how do you put a smile on your face, on other people's faces every day? How, where do you get your support, and where do you go to kind of get that sort of support that you need? Because I can imagine that would be weighing on you. So
I think that comes from having a very deep faith in humanity and saying we chose to be nurses, we chose to do this field, and our job, besides all the medical aspect of it and the medications and the critical thinking, we're there to put a smile on people's faces and tell them you're not going through this alone. We're going to go through it with you. And we need to hold on to that value of nursing as much as we can, especially during this pandemic. It's something that's rooted within. And I think that it's something that when they say nursing is a calling, I think that's that root, that's that value that's embedded within all of us, that we need to like soul search and find within ourselves to make sure that these patients are not alone. They have their nurse with them. And ça va bien aller, like it's going to be okay. We draw rainbows, we put them across the hall, the nursing station, just to include and show that although there is something very dark and it does feel like we're living a nightmare every day, that we do see the rainbow at the end of the storm that just came.
Yeah.
It's the same at my work too, but I feel like at my work too, there's like our support system is amazing. We support each other like crazy, all of us, the nurses, the child life team. There's kids who are drawing rainbows, parents who are drawing rainbows too, just thanking us every day. And that's what puts smiles on our faces every day that we go to work. So everyone is super, super supportive. And even just going in to see the kids, that's what puts a smile on my face.
So why did you choose this profession? Out of curiosity, what drew you to become nurses, and what calls you every day to wake up and wanna do this every day?
So for me, I always wanted to do something with kids. Then I got a job at the children's. Before I went into nursing, I was a unit coordinator, and I worked there full time for a year. And just being in the hospital setting, seeing how nurses work, I knew I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to help other kids, and I want to be on the front line. And then after that, I applied into nursing, and as soon as I started, I knew pediatrics is what I wanted to do, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yourself, Melissa?
Yeah, I think since I was very young, I knew I wanted to help people. I always had this like altruistic reason for myself to like just love being around people and help them in any way, shape, or form. And then as I grew older, I loved science and I loved medicine and everything health related. So I said, why? And I remember my grandmother got really sick. She had a stroke. And for 10 years, she lived with my family and she needed a lot of rehabilitation. And seeing the way the dynamic was between her and her nurses, and the way that I looked at these nurses, I'm like, wow, they're superheroes. They're transforming the way my grandmother had her stroke and giving her a good quality of life within all this time. So I thought, I want to be able to do that for someone's grandmother. I want to be that person, do that for someone's mom or someone's child. And I think it was the best decision I ever made. Nursing was a calling, I think, for Mel. It was a calling for myself as well. We're doing what we love every single day.
Has this pandemic changed your perspective on life, on your career? Has it strengthened the idea of following this career? I know a lot of people are afraid. I know that there's there's that general fear around the world. No one has ever seen this before. Basically, the entire world all shutting down simultaneously. And how do you feel Quebec is handling it? I know that our figures say that we've been the most proactive in trying to find the cases, and that's maybe one of the reasons why our numbers are so high. But your thoughts on that? Well, how do you feel that here in our province, how are we handling this? You think we're doing a great job? Is there means of improvement you find, or things that you see that have changed your views?
I think we're doing a pretty good job, but I think we're also lucky because we were able to see other countries, how they handled it. We were able to see what happened in China, what happened in Italy. So that kind of prepared us for what was to come. So I think Quebec's doing a pretty good job. I think what really needs a lot of help is the CHLDs, because they're, these elderly people don't deserve what they're going through, and especially that, they can't even have a family member there. And, nursing, we've always been super, super short-staffed, whether it's in hospitals or nursing homes. And this just made it worse because we don't have the staff that's needed, especially now that there's so many people that are getting sick. That's the really big problem, and I feel like that right now needs to be the focus.
Yeah.
Yourself? Yeah, I think right now, like adding on to what Mel said, we really need to shift our focus to the CHSLDs. Like, these populations really are in dire need of our help. And it's sad to say that, like, we've had this for years. It's coming to the surface now. People are so aware of it because of this pandemic. So in a way, yeah, double-ended sword, but people are actually seeing that this is an issue, something that really does need some investigation, and it needs equipment, needs people to go in and help these populations. Because I know people tend to neglect elderly people for whatever reason it might be, but these are human beings. As much as they're old, they deserve to be palliated with dignity at any point stage in their life. No matter how old you are, you deserve to have respect. You deserve to have that humane care for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
On top of what you said about Quebec, I am very proud to say that Quebec instilled all of these things in time, and everyone is following the precautions and the regulations appropriately and properly, because they're helping nurses and the frontliners when they do that. So it's really appreciated, and it's a beautiful thing to see people coming together. For sure.
Even myself, I have both my grandparents, my dad's parents, are both 94 years of age, and they're no one has had the opportunity to kind of visit them. We do kind of communicate, by phone, but it's been about a month since we've actually physically seen them, and it's very scary. It's a very scary time, and even over this time period, I don't know if there's a lot of people who have lost loved ones. You know what I mean? And even grieving has changed, right? How people are grieving. I don't know how you feel, but throughout this experience, I think the importance of physical contact and touch and being able to have those moments. I'm lucky enough that my wife and I are home with our children, but many people are going through very difficult times, especially when they're away from their loved ones. So yeah. I feel exactly what your sentiments. Anything you would like to share about? Like I said, today is a lot about what you guys are doing, and like I said, hats off to you and the type of work that you do every day. It really stresses the importance of what is really needed and what is really valued in today's society. And when it comes down to it, our healthcare here in Canada is a great system. Does it need improvement? Absolutely. Everything needs improvement, and it's just a thing that we got to do together, I guess.
I agree, and I just want to add something, and I'm sure Mel could add something too, but just so everyone's aware, what the daily life is as a nurse during this pandemic. If a patient comes up and it's a rule out COVID, meaning we don't know yet because the patient just got tested, we're going into that room not knowing if this patient is positive. So you're going into that room afraid that you didn't gown up properly, that when you're taking everything off, you're afraid that you touched your face by mistake, that you touched your eyes without knowing, and then God forbid it comes back positive, you're afraid you're going to catch it. So just going into work, there's a huge fear because you don't know what to expect. And there's a lot of anxiety, but it's the support that we have is the best thing that we have right now. And that's the only thing that's like really helping us being positive. And that's what's making me continue on with my days. And I think Mel can agree too, that it's very, very scary.
How long is that process, by the way, to kind of get dressed and undressed?
Long.
It's a long process. Can you kind of describe it? Because I think, the viewers and the listeners would really be interested on what it takes before you actually enter a room with patients with COVID, what you need to do, and to ensure that you're safe and everyone around you is safe.
Well, we have to put our gowns, put our gloves, put our mask or our N95, and then we have to put our visors. Just that takes, I don't know, maybe like 5 minutes, just because you want to make sure that you're really covered, everything is protected.
Are you doing this by yourselves, or are you having support with someone doing this with you?
We have watchers who are making sure that, like, at my work, making sure that we're getting gowned up properly. Yeah, and it's the same thing when we take everything off. They're watching us too, making sure that everything's okay. But the problem is now that we're a little short on PPE, so we're reusing where I am, we're reusing our masks.
You are.
Our visors and our N95s. We have to make sure they're disinfected properly for the next time we use them.
How long does that take, that process?
See, that adds to the process of taking everything out, because you're taking out your gown, your gloves, then you have to wipe your mask on one side, on the other side your visors. So
you have to wait for one visor to be completely dry.
Yeah, you have to wait for it to be dry. It's long.
Yeah.
Have any of your colleagues have gotten sick? Hopefully, I hope not. But has anybody gotten sick on the front lines of someone personal to yourselves? Is that a reality or no? Okay. I'm glad. I'm glad.
But at the children's, like I'm sure. Well, it was on the news in Montreal Gazette. On PICU they took 2 adult patients. Which is like a huge learning curve for us, because pediatrics and adults is 2 different worlds.
Of course.
So the PICU nurses had to get training and everything for these 2 adults that we got, but everything went super well. One ended up going home, one was sent back to the Vic on the ward. So it's scary, and it could be that it gets to the point where, let's say, the adult side is extremely overwhelmed and there's no beds, we could get these adults.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just find this whole situation completely terrifying. Like, I know, like, we're expected to be strong, and I think we do put on that strong face when we go to work. Mm-hmm. But you just add on to what Mel said before, just when we're downing and putting on our equipment and putting it off, you're overthinking every subtle little thing that you're doing. It's like, wait, did I tie it properly? Wait, did I accidentally just touch my face? Did I touch my eye? Did I put my goggles properly on? Wait, did I double gown? Did I do this? Did I do that? And you begin overthinking to the point that it kind of almost drives you. It drives you crazy.
Speaking about driving you crazy, I don't know how you feel, but I get enraged when I see people who are not following the social distancing and the minimum, and especially you guys who are in the front lines, who are maybe wanting these numbers to reduce. And like, even in my neighborhoods, I've seen people bike riding together in large groups and walking and, having meetings or secret parties. And I don't know, how do you feel about all this? And what would you like to tell our listeners about respecting that and respecting what the government and the premier are saying?
You see, I find that so frustrating, and it's disrespectful to the people.
Sorry, you froze.
Because
our
families.
You froze. Would you mind saying that again? My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. Like I was saying, it's a very frustrating thing to see when you just see people going out when government's telling us this is a time that we need to like be in solidarity and together and protecting each other, the frontliners, the elderly, the immune suppressed. And when I see that we're going to work every single day, we're putting our lives at risk, and not just us, pharmacists, people going to the grocery stores. We're putting all of our lives at risk to make sure that everyone's able to stay home and safe and healthy with their families. I'm sure Mel would agree that like we'd love to be home with our families, but we can't. We have a duty to go and protect. And we're not expecting much from people. We're just expecting them to keep 6 feet apart during this time, and things will look better and you will be reconciling with people that you love and want to be with. But for the time being, we're really asking people to respect this social distance in order to protect us and to protect our patients as well.
Yourself, Melissa, anything to add to that? And
I agree. You know, there's still people that I see walking like friends, just walking with each other, trying to go to the park. And like, it upsets me because they're not listening to what they're supposed to do. And, you know, they don't know if they have the virus or not. And if they pass it on to their friend is going home and could give it to whoever they're living with. And we don't know if they live with elderly people or someone who's sick. So that frustrates me a lot. And I feel like there's some people who aren't taking this seriously and they really should.
you think it's a particular age group? You think it's people in general?
You know what it is? I think people need to understand this virus is not ageist. It's not sexist. It doesn't comorbidities. If you have underlying illnesses, if it wants to attack you, it's going to attack you. It's invisible. And that's what's scary, is that you can be completely asymptomatic for a certain amount of days. And just like that, you can have a complete turnover and be having these respiratory symptoms. You could be 20, you could be 80. You could have asthma, you could be completely healthy athlete. If the virus is going to come for you, it's going to come for you. Like it's scary to put it that way, but people need to get and understand it. So they'll take those precautions, because
there are young people, like I said, who end up in ICU and they have no underlying conditions. So that's what it is about this virus. It's very scary because it's unpredictable and you don't know what to expect.
What do you guys feel about the idea of now the government is looking into slowly, I guess, reintegrating certain essential services and people getting back to work? I can understand, some garages and people, wanting to do some maintenance on their cars and other fields that are opening up to getting back to work. Do you think that is going to become problematic? Do you think that are we at the right stage? How long have you been in it, and have you seen an improvement in where you're at right now?
It worries me.
It does.
I'll be honest, it worries me because we're like at a plateau right now in Quebec.
We just reached peak.
Yes. This week actually they say it would be our peak moment. So
and it's still gonna take a long time for it to go down. We have like 900 new cases every day just in Quebec. So the fact that they're saying that May 4th certain things will open, I believe it's still too early because our numbers aren't where they should be. So it is very scary just because it could cause a second wave. And that's the last thing we need, is for this to get even worse.
No, understood. Yourself, Melissa, anything to add to that if you'd like?
I just think that now that we reached peak, I was hoping that maybe they would have waited a little bit longer, maybe towards the end of the peak when they saw numbers slowly trending downwards, that maybe they would have started enlisting, okay, essential workers go back to work slowly, and still with the precautions of continuing to social distance, because let's be honest, social distancing is actually to be the new norm for a while. I mean, I don't see this going anywhere until 2022. I do think things are slowly going to be normalized again. We're going to be able to see each other slowly, but I don't think now is the time. I think we're too early in the pandemic to be going back to that.
Normal life.
Yeah. So you're saying at least 2 years before things start to kind of feel like they were before everything happened in early on in this whole epidemic that started feels like 6 months ago almost, right? So it's crazy for us to see how long it's going to take. I know that you, Melissa, your sister was in Italy for a bit. She was teaching, right, in Palermo, and now I imagine she's home, right?
She's still in Italy.
Oh, she is. I thought she is in Italy.
She's still in Italy. She's working from home. She's still teaching online.
Okay.
But yeah, when it all started in Italy, it was extremely scary because they got hit really, really hard with so many deaths. And then, to be quarantined in your home, it's very hard, especially when you're away from your family. It's hard for us too that she's there. It's
You guys
really
communicate often? You talk
every day.
every day? And how is it over there now? Are they seeing the...
It's actually getting better. They passed their worst. The peak is done. Numbers are lower. Deaths are lower.
Okay.
I know some businesses started to open.
Okay.
And May 4th, if I'm correct, the second phase is going to start. We don't know what the second phase is yet, but they're going to start changing things of people could start going here, going there.
How come she chose not to come back? Was there a reason why she wanted to stay, or?
She still has to work.
She still has to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you gotta work, right? Sometimes pay some bills. Oh my God. So the other thing I wanted to talk about with you guys is if you have an underlying message to tell people, what would it be? Like, if there's something that you wanted to take back from our conversation today, what would it be? What would you like to say to people? I know what I'd like to say to you guys is, like I said, I've seen you guys grow up. So it seems like so many years ago, but extremely honored and proud of the work that you do every day. And I don't know what your work schedule is like. I don't know how many hours you're doing. I can imagine they're quite long days, but like I said, on behalf of everybody who's listening and on behalf of everyone who goes to get tested, thank you for what you do.
Thank you. See, that's what makes us love our job.
Yeah, it really does.
So
underlying message. I don't know. I guess I feel like a lot of nurses are just, people don't really understand the way nurses work. And I just hope this opens people's eyes, not only for nurses, but
everyone,
that I just hope people realize how important us frontliners are and how much we're doing. And we're literally risking our health for helping others.
Yeah.
And I just hope just that makes people understand the importance of this virus and really just to stay home, do their part, because if by them doing their part, they're helping us.
Yourself, Melissa, anything you'd like to say?
Well said, Mel. I think this is just a point in time where we're just asking human beings of the world to just collectively come together and help each other during this pandemic. And I know it does feel like a nightmare most of the time, but we are going to get through this. And I hope that this does shed a light on what healthcare workers do. And way before this pandemic, our jobs were very difficult and it just got harder with this. But I just hope that this sheds a light on what we do and makes everyone realize that we truly do love what we do. We do it wholeheartedly. We're risking ourselves every single day, and we do it with everything because we love the people of the world. As cheesy as that may sound, but that's what nurses are, and that's who we are. That embodies us. So I just hope that everyone continues to do their part to help us, and that we could just collectively keep working together to help fight this pandemic.
And not only thank you to the nurses, but thank you to the grocery store workers.
Yes, everyone.
Everyone.
The bankers,
everyone appreciates what all these people are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my last question would be, I'd like to end off obviously on a happy note. Do you have any good feel-good stories? I know you've been in the profession for a very short time. Anything that when you think about that moment kind of reaffirms the reason why you do what you do every day? Is there something that has happened to you, a particular moment, a particular face, a particular person that kind of like says, I'm glad I was there for that person, or I'm glad I do what I do?
I had one actually that was this week. Despite of everything that's happening, it's bittersweet, but the patient was imminently passing palliative care from cancer, and the family wanted someone from spiritual care to be present. The thing is that no one was able to come in because of the COVID. And I was able to take out a prayer in Italian and hold hands with the two family members in the room and say the prayer with them. And it's sad the patient did end up passing, but the family was so touched by that, saying that you gave us peace during this nightmare. And it's things like that that make me feel like I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm in the right place. And we are able to do the best that we can during this very difficult time. Even during something as difficult as grief, we could make it as beautiful as we can and as peaceful as we can.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yourself?
For me, where I am, we see a lot of chronic patients, a lot of chronic kids who will be with us for like a few months. And for myself, there was one patient particularly, he was there for a few months and he finally went home. And just the feeling of discharging a patient, knowing that they're going home, that we did everything we could to get that patient to where they are now, that they're able to go home, it's the best feeling, because that's what we're there for. All we want is the best health for our patients, and the moment they go home, it's the best feeling. And for me, that's why I love going to work, because I want all of the patients to be in that position where they can go home.
Well said. Oh, you're making me emotional. That was really beautiful.
Yeah. Ladies, it was an absolute pleasure to kind of have a conversation with you. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were my first ever guest on my first ever podcast, and I hope
We're honored.
I know we really are, Vince. Thank you for thinking of us.
I wouldn't have, like I said, I wouldn't have chosen two better people to kind of represent an incredible profession. I know there was a lot of people that wanted to be a part of today's episode, but unfortunately couldn't be here tonight with us. But hopefully when this is all over, we can reconvene and talk about different things and better things
and how we overcame this.
Yes,
absolutely.
well said.
Absolutely. So thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a great evening. Till the next episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.